Hey everybody, Mrs. Maloon here with your last unit of vocab for the entire year, Unit 15, and we're done. It's the last one. Super exciting. So let's get into it. Remember, if you want to play along and you want to play with Pear Deck, all you have to do is click this link right here, and it'll take you to something like this. All right, I'm going to go through the Pear Deck one with you so you can see what it looks like. Here we go. This unit is really exciting, and it's really cool because we're learning about a really, really cool female figure in history named Ida M. Tarbell. Some people pronounce her last name Tarbell. I don't know which is right. I've heard it both ways from experts, so I don't know. But she was what we call a muckraking journalist. Or back in the day, they called them muckrakers, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So, I know this is a lot to read, so let me give you the rundown. Our passage, this unit is about Ida Tarbell. She's one of the most influential female journalists of all time. Her work in investigative journalism has influenced our country in countless ways, including creating stricter child labor laws, which kept people from using children for hard labor in factories, changing hazardous conditions for coal miners, passing the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, which basically set industry standards for sanitary conditions in food or medicine, and workplaces that handled food or medicine, so that way when we consume it off the market, we're not getting all sorts of gross, nasty diseases and things that could hurt us because the workplace and the environment that it was made wasn't safe. They also put an end to those phony doctors who are kind of going around saying, oh, we have this miracle elixir that'll cure anything, a cold, baldness, hemorrhoids, whatever you got, it'll cure it. And we all know that really wasn't what it did. There was all sorts of crazy stuff that they put in there that was like really gross and not good for you, and it put an end to all that too. It was kind of the very beginnings of what we understand as the FDA. The Food and Drug Administration. So it's kind of like the start of all of that. Another thing that she did that was super cool and super important is that she wrote an expose or an article that kind of exposed the seedy, bad underbelly of a person or company. She wrote an expose on the Standard Oil Company. And this was owned by America's first billionaire, John D. Rockefeller. Now, what's really cool about this is that Rockefeller had been working up in his business over the years, and he actually created what we call a monopoly. And I know you know the board game, but the idea of the board game is to own as much of the board as humanly possible and make as much money as humanly possible, right? Well, that's exactly what a monopoly is. He basically owned pretty much, or was in really close cahoots with pretty much all of the oil companies across the country, which meant that small business owners and small oil companies couldn't really make it in the industry because he would use some really nasty business practices to help push them out of business and make all that money for himself. Ida M. Tarbell actually went and she did a lot of really great research and investigation, and she helped break up that monopoly. She got the federal government to say, hey, you can't own the entire country. You can't have this much power. You need to split your company up. You need to break it up. You need to sell off some parts of it because other people deserve to share in this money and in this power as well. So it was really important that she did this work. And she's influenced the way that investigative journalism works to this very day. So when you see all of these articles coming out that are exposing companies and people for the really terrible things that they do, Ida M. Tarbell was part of that. She was a great influencer in that. So really important lady in American history. And if you want to learn more about her, this lady is actually really cool, and she knows a lot about her. The video is not very long, so if you want to learn a little more about her, take a minute, check out the video. She has a lot of really interesting things to say. So that's what our passage is about, but our first word for this unit is abyss. Say it with me, abyss. Good. You guys have probably heard this word before, but it means a deep or bottomless pit. All right, so some of you have heard kind of the joke staring. I've stared into the abyss and it has stared back, very edgy McEdgelord, very goth. But The idea is that it's this deep, bottomless pit that has no end. Okay. The American labor was an abyss of terrible wages, dangerous conditions, and corrupt business practices before the muckrakers came along. Now remember, they're called muckrakers. Actually, Theodore Roosevelt coined them the muckrakers because he said they basically dig through the dirt, or they dig up the dirt on the people that they're investigating in order to show people the truth about them. So they're raking through the muck to get the information that they need to, bring these people to justice. So here are a couple examples of an abyss. Here's an abyss that's actually on the moon, I believe. Okay, it's a big, giant, endless-looking hole. Okay, I think it might actually be a lake at some point, but it looks like an abyss here. And here's a well, and I'm sure the well has a bottom. I'm sure there's water down there somewhere, but for right now, it just kind of looks like this endless, bottomless pit. So here's a question for you. You can answer it over here. Type your answer in here. If you could pick one thing to throw into an abyss, what would it be and why? Now keep in mind, you have to understand what an abyss is and think about whether or not you're ever going to want to see this thing again, because if you're throwing it into an abyss, chances are you're probably not going to see it, right? Because if an abyss is a bottomless pit, it's never going to have the opportunity to come back up. Okay, so just remember that when you're thinking about your answer. Word number 2 is befall. Say it with me, befall. Good. It's a verb. It's an action word. It means to happen or to occur or to happen to. So if something befalls you, that just means that something's happened to you. Oftentimes we hear it used in a negative connotation, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Financial ruin befell Ida Tarbell's father when John D. Rockefeller, owner of the Standard Oil Company, used unfair practices to run his small oil company out of business. And we'll talk about that in the passage. Right? But notice we didn't say befall, we said befell. It's the past tense, right? So if you're coming up with sentences for your comprehension questions, okay, you can use the past tense of the word. You just can't use the word like a noun or an adjective. You can't say, oh, he was so befell when he fell off his bike, right? Because that doesn't make any sense, okay? Some examples, we have Wile E. Coyote having a bit of an issue here. Some trouble has befallen him because there's an anvil right above his head. And here is a quote that says, be patient over what befalls you. And I really like this. It's actually from the Quran, which is the Islamic holy book, which is pretty cool. But it's just kind of a way of saying, like, kind of roll with the punches. Be patient with the things that happen to you, good or bad, let it roll, and you'll be okay, right? And I think that's pretty important to be thinking about right now in all this craziness, is that whatever's going on for you right now, it's okay. You'll be okay. It'll all be good. Okay? We have a special guest. See her? Oh, I'm being here. It's Luna! Hi, Luna! Bye, Luna. She's not very sociable. I show her off when she shows up. All right. So, can only bad things befall you? Explain. Is it just bad things that befall you? It does have a negative connotation, but can the only things that befall you be bad things? Write your answer right over here in the answer box. Word number 3, crucial. Say it with me, crucial. Very good. It's an adjective, so it's a describing word, describes nouns and pronouns, but it means of supreme importance, decisive, critical. Okay, so if something is crucial, it means it has to be there for things to work out. Ida Tarbell's expose, or an article or series of articles that expose the wrongdoings of a person, company, or organization, her expose of the Standard Oil Company was crucial in breaking up the monopoly they held in the United States. Okay, so again, we talked about what an expose is, and yes, it looks exactly like the word exposed with a nice little accent over the end of it. Very French, okay? But it literally means to expose the wrongdoings of a person, a company, or an organization, right? And so it can be one article because it can be a series of articles, but Ida Tarbell's expose was crucial in breaking up the monopoly that the Standard Oil Company had in the United States. So we have here a big, very important stamp. We also have, here we have sunlight and water, crucial for this little sprout to grow into whatever plant it's going to grow into. We just did made our raised garden beds today. I'm very excited. So we're going to grow all sorts of fruits, all vegetables in there. It'll be so good. Very excited. But sunlight and water are crucial to plants because that's what they need to survive. So what is crucial for keeping your pets safe and healthy? What do you have to do to make sure that they're okay? What's crucial for keeping yourself safe and healthy during this pandemic? What sorts of things are you consistently being told to do to keep yourself healthy and keep yourself well? What about ensuring that a recipe you're trying comes out right? What's crucial to making that happen? What sorts of things do you have to do? Otherwise, the recipe's going to fall apart. All right, number 4. This is kind of an interesting word. The word is dregs. Say it with me. Dregs. Good. It's a noun, and in this case, it's plural. That's why I put the plural in there. So in your book, it'll say N, P. The P or PL means plural. Okay. It's the last remaining part or the part of least worth. So Ida Tarbell's journalism helped get workers' rights to people who were considered the dregs of American society by the rich elite. So the rich elite would look at blue-collar workers, coal miners, factory workers, people like that, and they would consider them the dregs of society, the part of least worth, which is crazy because those are the people who are making our country work. Okay, they're making all of the things that all the rich people are buying. So how they could ever look at them and say that they weren't worthwhile, that they weren't worthy, is just crazy. And when people still do that today, it's nuts. People look at, people who work in fast food restaurants and, waitresses and things like that, and they look at them sometimes like the dregs of society. But without them, you ain't getting any service. So good luck, So that's why it's really important to treat everybody with respect and make sure that you're thankful for the work that everybody does. If they do their best and they do a good job, they earn every dollar they make. So something to think about. But dregs is just what's left over, the last remaining part, the part of least worth. So if we say here are the dregs of somebody's coffee, right? It's all the kind of the residue. That's one of our other vocab words from a long time ago. Residue that's left on the cup and all the junk in the bottom. Sometimes, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you know that Professor Trelawney had them read tea leaves as a form of divination or fortune telling. And those, they would look at the dregs of the tea that were left over after they were done and look at the shapes and read the tea leaves that way. Here is the skeleton of some sort of lizard. I'm assuming some kind of iguana, maybe. But that is the dregs. Okay, that's whatever's left over of that poor iguana after he's been baked in the sun a little too long. Poor guy. How might you feel if you opened the fridge for your favorite dessert and all you found were the dregs? How would you feel about that? And that could be any dessert. Cookies, cake, pie, chocolate milk. Alyssa Ross, I'm talking to you. I would like to say, I just made a pie the other day. Pretty proud of it. It has a pretzel crust. So like the crust is like crushed pretzels with a layer of caramel that I made and then a layer of chocolate mousse on top of that. It was awesome. But if I looked in the fridge and that's all I found were just the dregs of my pie, I would be very upset because I worked really hard on that. And if I didn't get a taste of it, I'd be so mad. But I did, and it was delicious. All right, last word of the day. Embody. Say it with me. Embody. Good. It's a verb. It's an action word. It means to give form to, or to incorporate, to include, or to personify. So the idea is that if you embody something or somebody embodies you, they're kind of taking on and giving a form to something. So somebody who's really, really bright and happy all the time, you might say they embody sunshine, right? Because their attitude is just very sunny and bubbly and happy. So you might say they're kind of giving form to sunshine. Okay. Ida Tarbell embodied courage and bravery because she went to any length to expose the truth. And that's a big feat for a man back in the day, but for a woman, even more so. Okay, because women were not treated the same way that we are treated now back then. Well, for the most part. They had a lot fewer rights. They were looked on as the weaker sex. And they were not treated with the respect that men got. And so for her to be so prominent in her field and for her to be such a powerhouse of a writer was really a big deal. And really showed she embodied that courage and bravery, getting her stories and getting the information she needed. Here, this person is kind of embodying Zen. Okay, she's playing her drum, she's meditating, she's kind of trying to embody that idea of peace and tranquility. She's trying to give it form in herself. She's trying to be a receptacle for that. So she's kind of embodying that. I put the Hogwarts House crest on here because if you think about the 4 founders of Hogwarts, each one of these Hogwarts houses, Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw, each one of their founders, the people who created the house, were the embodiment of certain characteristics. So, for example, Godric Gryffindor was kind of the embodiment of courage and bravery. Hufflepuffs were the embodiment of loyalty and friendship. Ravenclaws embodied cleverness and intelligence, and Slytherins embodied cunning and wit, and the ability to get things done. Okay, so but all of these students, they fall into those different houses because they are the embodiments of those things as well. So in Native American cultures, people are said to have a spirit guide that takes the shape of an animal that embodies their character. Sometimes we just call them their spirit animal. We kind of have to be careful with that because sometimes, we don't want to take something that's really holy and important to a culture and kind of just use it however we want. It's kind of not okay. But what would your animal spirit look like and why? So, what sort of an animal would embody your characteristics, right? I think I would definitely be something like, I want to say an owl because I'm pretty smart and, I like to see everything going on around me. I try to be very with it. But in reality, that's it's my ideal animal is an owl. Really, I think I'm more like a llama because they're kind of tall, goofy looking. They get kind of sassy and spit at you when you really tick them off. They're really loyal. They're good guard animals. Okay, they protect the things that they're enclosed with. I'm a protector. I like to protect people. So yeah, I'm thinking my animal spirit's probably a llama. Because I'm cool like that. All right. That's words 1 through 5 for today. Check back in tomorrow for words 6 through 10. And then we'll see you there. All right. Bye, guys.